Welcome to Good Mom, Bad Mom podcast. This is Danielle, aka the Bad Mom.
And this is Jennifer, aka the Good Mom.
So last week we did an episode on generational trauma part 1. So we essentially trauma dumped and
we gave you cliff notes.
Yeah. And so this time we're going to just kind of jump right back in, but kind of focus more on like, what do we do with all of this and how do we cope and how do we move on? And like, what does that look like?
How do we not stay in it?
Yeah. And so, well, there's one thing that I wanted to circle back, and it was a part that I edited out because we had to cut
some time.
Yeah, we had to cut some time. But so, one thing that I started noticing about myself, so you know how I do affirmations and I do, that's what works for me.
Yeah.
And so I know, when I'm in my place, I know my certain things. I know to go to Mel Robbins, I know to go to my affirmations, things like that. In not to say that there aren't other things that could be helpful, but I go to my go-to. So like when you were explaining that for you, you're in this place where it's like, you want to change. And so what's familiar to you is to go shopping essentially.
And I would say I would expand on that and not so much shopping, but keep busy.
It's kind of like the work smarter, not harder type thing. Like go with that.
Yeah.
And meaning what you're shopping for, you're shopping for peace. You're not shopping, does it bring you peace? If it doesn't, it goes. That's a quit.
And I would expound on that for this week. It wasn't so much peace for me, but submission.
Which is peace.
Yeah, of like, hey,
but that's the other thing though is, and I don't know if it's this way for you, for me, submission was never peace for me. Submission was, okay, the world's going to come down and people are going to take full advantage of me and I'm going to disappear.
And that was the fear for me of submitting. But in the submission I feel now, it's almost relief.
Yeah, it's
almost relief of like,
you're not submitting to anyone but yourself. And that's the thing, is having to submit to yourself. Where I always looked at submission as submitting to external, but it's actually internal.
Well, and I think the fear of submission is like, okay, well, it's that no one's going to consider me how I consider me.
Yeah.
No one's going to mitigate my feelings how I mitigate my feelings and have that. And they say the true form of love is consideration, is how does what I do affect other people?
Right.
And in the world we live in, that is not something that people actively participate
not typically.
Not typically. And so when you say that of like peace, I'm trying to look for peace externally, like that's what I was doing.
You're going to find it inside first.
And if I couldn't find it, then I would just stay busy, because if you're busy, then you don't need peace, It's like, well, I've got all this other stuff to fill in. But
that sounds exhausting.
It's empty.
I get where you're coming from, because I remember feeling that way. It's just I come to a place now where it's like, ugh, like that just sounds. Now being busy. Well, when we kind of talked about this last night too, where this is where you and I are different, where you stay busy to avoid. And for me, I avoid by shutting down and slowing down and coming to a stop. And so it's like you need what I have and I have what you need, kind of thing.
It was interesting because my anxiety has been super, super heightened this week. And one of the questions weirdly that I've been asking is, how do you feel your anxiety? And I had a conversation with my mom about this, and she kind of said the same thing, is when I feel that I just go to sleep. I just shut down. And for me, it feels like ants under my skin. Like there's this restless energy where I physically need to get something out of my body, and just kind of how it works with that. And so my tricks and tips and affirmations, like for me, I realized this week, like affirmations are not a thing for me. Like
that's okay.
And that is something that's beautiful and experience for you and that I've watched through you. But for me, it's like complete, like utter submission of this isn't me. This isn't going to work out because of me. This isn't going to do anything with me unless, God uses me in the way he sees. And so, and that is changing for me, because I'm very much, if I don't do it, it's not getting done. Or if I don't do it, it's not going to be done right.
Yeah.
And just letting back and be like, hey, I don't know if you looked around, but like you suck at your job because it's mine.
Oh. I mean, yeah.
And then I think I texted you this morning of like the mindset shift for me of like, you're always like, it's something I'm not accepting. I don't accept that thought. I don't accept that mindset. I don't accept this anymore. And I think intellectually I understood that from a like, yeah, I know that makes sense. But like this morning I woke up and it felt it like in my bones of like, no.
And it's so funny because the way that I say it to myself
Mhm.
is I'm not on that timeline. Like
Yeah.
that thought will come up. I'm like, oh man, that is something that could play out, but I'm not on that timeline.
Yeah.
Like that's a different timeline for me.
And that, like, from anxiety specifically, is pushing me to live realistically one day at a time.
Yeah, and I think with that mindset too, it's like it's turning the empathy towards myself again
Mhm.
because it's like, yeah, I can see those things happening. That would be terrible for me, but I'm not there anymore. I'm not that person.
Yeah.
Things like that aren't going to happen. And then but also too in the back of my mind, I have to keep of if it does happen, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Like it'll suck to go through, but I'm going to come out on the other side. And that's
Mhm.
just something that I need to go through for whatever reason to be able to gain the tools to hit something further in the future.
Mhm.
And so, but I think too, shifting that mindset kind of leads you to go a different direction than the horrible things that I'm sitting here thinking, if that makes sense.
Mhm. For me, I take it like one step further and just like go biblical of it of like, oh, that's Satan. That's not God. Be gone.
Yeah.
Like, get behind me.
Yeah.
And just, yeah, same process, just different verbiage.
I totally agree. So okay, healing isn't easy, but every step forward changes the future of our children. This is I don't feel this yet, and I think it's because
We're
my
in
kids are
it.
still young
Mhm.
and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like, oh, I'm so excited for them to be 18 and what the hell is this gonna look like, kind
Mm.
of thing, because I mean, that's a real thing and
Yeah.
that's something in my head. And so
When you say that, are you saying like that's when you feel like you'll see the fruits
how
of your
about I fucked up?
parenting? Oh, okay. We definitely took two different views on that.
Yes. But that's just the thing is that it's one of those that gives me oddly, like I don't know if this is toxic or not, but having that mindset, it that drives me to do better when I have my kids next week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because
Where
you
it's like,
understand you have such a limited time
yeah,
to influence
yeah,
them.
and
Yeah.
so it keeps me. It's almost like it keeps me on that edge of, yeah, okay, but what are you going to do about it? Because you still have time. Like you haven't run out
Mhm.
of time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that like that pressure that of you've got to do this,
Mhm.
and it well I guess keeps me on point. I guess is if that makes sense.
Like reality checks you.
Yeah, where
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, how bad did I fuck them up? Well, let's try not to do that this week. And
Yeah.
then let's try not to do that this next week. And then let's try, and you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so because then at least I can look back at the end of the day when, they're 18 and think, I know I tried. I
Yeah.
tried. I tried my damnedest. I was very aware. I was very mindful of my effect on my children,
Mhm.
and I tried.
Yeah.
And then also, the lessons along the way, and they're going to have their own
Yeah.
paths and, things that they're going to go
Why do you
through.
think that you're gonna mess them up? Like,
Because
as far as, like,
I
you're
mean,
just
look at the
gonna.
lineage that I come from, you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
the parallels that I still see, but
I feel like I would push that, like you push me of like,
oh, I do.
yeah.
And but at the same time, I'm being dishonest with myself to not acknowledge that thought of,
That you may bleed on them a little bit.
well, not only that, but that I'm going to continue this lineage, even though I know that I'm not supposed to,
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, but again, I
Well,
take,
and that's where I asked because I was like, do you feel like it's one of those where it's self-fulfilling prophecy if you use that verbiage to then.
but that's where I tweak it a little bit,
Yeah.
kind of like with my kids, where it's like, okay, I still have this, but this is like a lifelong thing from now
Yeah.
on because it's not just about my kids. Am I going to turn out like my mom? Am I going to turn out like the women in my family? That keeps me on point because it's
Mhm.
like, well, I can make different decisions every single day to not do that. Am I going to fail? Probably. But I fail because I'm supposed to learn something to get away from that.
Yeah.
And so it's almost giving myself a break of like, yeah, you might fail, but the one thing I know I'm going to get back up and try harder, and I'm going
Mhm.
to get back up,
Yeah.
period. And so on days where it's like, I don't know what this looks like, I don't know how I'm going to do this and all this kind of stuff, I'm going to try
Yeah.
that. And that's all that we can do is that I'm
Mhm.
going to try, I'm going to learn, I'm going to try, I'm going to be mindful, I'm going to try to be a good person, I'm going to try to not punch people in the neck, the basics.
The basics. I would say too, I think one of the things not talked about, and we got really into this last night, and just because we have been overly transparent with you guys. I feel like this is a conversation that people are going through right now as they figure out who they are and heal. What do your friendships look like if you heal in different directions?
I have very limited friendships. I
Yeah.
mean, and I think my awareness about that is that I have limited friendships because that's all I can handle right now.
Well, and I think
I'm a
too,
lot.
I would disagree with that. I think you have limited friendships because you are picking and choosing. You are being very selective with your village right now.
I am, but at the same time, I mean, because I have acquaintances and stuff like that I could deepen those friendships and
Yeah.
things like that. I don't have the capacity. And it's not anything to do with them. It's not a reflection on them. It is truly me being good to myself. Especially, and I think that again, not to harp on the dating thing, but that is a huge thing in my lineage is having a partner. And I say a partner, a man, having that, introducing that now after 4 years of not 3-4 years not having that, it's exhausting for me because that is such a strong point for me because
as far as like a contention of like it could go either way, you could lose yourself, find yourself.
lose myself completely, because society aside, at least
you
for
want
me,
to be chosen. You want to be
well,
loved.
I want to be chosen, but also too, I look at the women in my life, the women that I grew up with and all this kind of stuff, and it was man centered. It was male centered at all times, and I'm just not male centered. I refuse to be male centered, but at the same time, I crave partnership. I crave that at the same time. And so it's finding that balance. And so introducing other people, it's just too much. It's like my house is full essentially between me and then you and then my young friend and then my boyfriend. It's a lot, but I don't feel like I'm missing anything, if that makes sense. Like I'm not sitting here thinking, oh my God. And it might change in the future. I don't know. It is interesting to heal and then look at my universe and see
who's left too.
But then also how different I am. I sit here and I say I'm, looking at these parallels of the women in my family, but I'm also looking at major differences. That's what keeps me on point, essentially, of that I have parallels. There are going to be some things that are just embedded in me. There's also new things that are coming in that kind of soften those things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. I think for me too, like specific to being in a partnership this week and then a partnership this week. I'm married. It's not just for this week. I'm in a partnership. I don't know why I said this. This week, I have shifted my thoughts. Maybe that's where I was going and how I view myself and what I want my relationship with God to look like. And that has kind of shaken you and James, not so much in the sense of like you're not supportive, but and I went from balls to the walls very quickly of like, this is what I want. This is the direction I'm going. This is like full submission I'm going in, take it or leave it kind of mentality, which for you, like both of us have some of that religious trauma and feeling that like, oh, what does our friendship look like after that? What do we look like? And it's just been so heavy on my heart that like God is using us in a way and we don't know what that way is. We may never see the full picture of it, but it's just like, I know you're a part of my life and I know God's using you with me and just pushing my limiting beliefs. Because sometimes I'll just be like, oh, I don't know about this. I'm so stressed about this. Or what if this happens? And your response to that is, is your God not big enough? Do you not have faith? And you push me in that way.
Yeah.
And so just because we don't believe or practice in the same way doesn't mean God's not using you in my life.
Oh, for
and
sure.
Vice versa. And so but for you, it's a genuine fear because you've been shunned by religion your whole life. And what does that look like now in me? Is that going to be something that happens to you? And it's just like that idea of submission. It just always comes back to submission for me of like, I don't know how you're going to use me. I don't know what you're going to do with my life. And that's okay. I'm here. I'm along for the ride.
And I think for me right now in this phase, and I feel like, I don't know how, but I feel like it's going to change, but it's kind of like what I had said to you last night, where I was saying I've had to come to a point where when I lose people, it's okay.
Yeah.
not saying that I want to lose you
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
anything like that,
But
but
accepting that as a possibility either
yeah,
way.
and the fear of having that thought anyway,
Yeah.
and being able to sit in that and accept it
Mhm.
either way. And I think that when I feel that way, I probably go more internal, which is probably when I get quieter with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Not, it's not a reflection on you by any means. It's more of a like, you gotta, it's gonna be okay. Like, she's on her path, and
Mhm.
if that leads her away from me, then it does. I don't truly feel like it's gonna end up being that necessarily. I'm swimming. I'm kind of,
But I
I
think
say,
that's, and for me, like you're saying those are, for me, that's like, that's Satan. That's Satan putting it in there, telling me that he can't use us because we don't believe the same way. That's Satan putting it in there and be like, you guys aren't really gonna do this thing. Of like, what you're doing is so cute and love it. Boop.
yeah.
And then it's just shoving that back down. It's like, no, like I hope you believe in my God, because my God's not gonna let this ministry stop him. My God's not gonna let two different people slow him down. So
Right.
whatever that looks like, we're here.
Yeah, and but I think that it's my personal challenge
Mhm.
of, because that's the thing, like, if God were to take you away from me, like,
That would hurt.
that's
Well,
a
and I think too, for
fear.
me, like my fear isn't so much as losing you. My fear is, and I don't know how to say this because I don't mean it in a negative way, but like losing this mindset, because being with you, I have been different people.
Mhm.
And now I'm kind of pushing myself into this direction. And so it's, for me, it's the, don't let yourself get comfortable anymore.
I think that,
Yeah.
yes, I think that that's exactly what it is, where it's like, don't get too comfortable, but at the same time, know that you're going to be caught every
That you're going to
time.
be used and you're going to,
Yeah, you're going to be
you're,
caught
yeah.
every time. Like, you're not going to fall through the cracks. You're
Yeah.
not, you're not going to drown, all that kind of stuff. But I think I go back to when I cut my mother off. That was the
Mhm.
first time in my life. That was when I took my first stand of, this is not my life.
Yeah.
This is not what I'm going to accept in my
Yeah.
life. This is not who I am. And then I had the divorce. And then I lost, my best friend since I was 17, and, all that kind of stuff. 8 years in the making.
Mhm.
Every single time I was okay.
Yeah.
And so,
And I think that's the variation too of like, we associate pain with not okay, and redirecting that mindset of like, this pain is like perseverance. Like, this is testing your perseverance.
yeah.
This is testing your growth. This, and changing that mindset of like, oh God, it hurts, it aches, I'm so in pain, I'm so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Take it away from me, and just sit in it and just feel like, God, you're asking me to grow. You're asking me to persevere. You're asking me to mature. You're asking me to like release some limiting belief of my own.
Yeah.
Just give me the grace to sit in it.
I do. I mean, it's very simple, but when I have the bad thoughts or limiting beliefs, I question them.
Yeah. Which
Not
is what you do with me, which pushes me because
not
I'm like, oh, I
every
believe it.
Yeah, not every thought that comes in your head is true. Like, question
Exactly.
it. Why not?
Mhm.
Your influence, your thoughts, and, I don't have this, but a lot of people I've heard have this thing where it's not even their voice in their head, it's their mom's voice, it's their friend's voice,
Mm.
their husband's voice, it's their, whoever,
Yeah.
their voice telling them that they're not good enough, or they're, just your negative limiting beliefs. Question those.
Mhm.
You are having those because you were programmed that way.
Yeah.
Reprogram yourself with just your voice. And now for you, that looks like God. That's God's voice.
Yeah.
For me, the way that I view that is, my voice is God's voice, because God is in everything. He flows through all of us. So everything that I am thinking, it's God. When I had the pain in my chest from anxiety, that's God. And when I have the gut feeling in my stomach, that's God. And so when I say me and it's mine and all this kind of stuff, I'm not saying it as like an atheist person by
Right.
any means. I just believe that God
Yeah.
flows through everything. We are all connected in that way. And so it's having,
We are the body.
yeah. And so question
Mhm.
question your ego, because that's what it is. It's your
Yeah.
ego.
Mhm.
And ego deaths
And
are freaking awful.
like, I've noticed now too of like, what offends me is where I need to grow now. And that's hard
Yeah.
because like, being offended is an everyday occurrence in our society today.
Yeah.
And I think when we sit back and think about it, of like, think about the things that offend you. Think about the things that pick that little voice in the side of your head, or like, how dare she me? How dare she cast that judgment on me or whatever it is, and think about it and be like, hey, is that my ego? Is that vanity? Is that whatever it is?
I
And
take
really
my
push.
I think that for me, the realization that I had in those specific instances
Mhm.
is I catch myself because I'm thinking, you're so selfish. That's that's a reflection on them. That's not a reflection on you. Stop
Mhm.
taking on what they're
Projecting.
projecting, because that's all that it is.
Yeah.
They're projecting and you're giving away your power
Mhm.
to them. And so, I have this conversation with a person in my life that, they get full of anger. And I always say, why? Like, why would you do that?
Mhm.
Like, you're giving them all your power.
Yeah.
Stop giving them the attention. You're feeding their ego by reacting. Do you believe the things that they're saying,
Mhm.
or how they're acting towards you? Do you think that you deserve that?
Yeah.
Then why are you reacting to it?
Mhm.
Why are you were
Let's not
literally
argue
giving,
just to argue anymore.
yeah, like you're giving them your power on a silver platter. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, and take that a step farther. You're putting yourself on their level.
Yeah.
You're lowering yourself to meet them
Yeah.
in a place you never wanted to be in the beginning.
Yeah, and I'm starting to come to a place where I don't even feel sorry for them anymore. It's more of a like, oh man, that's a hard path that they've been assigned. That I
Yeah.
mean, but that's my mentality of where I go,
Mhm.
is not necessarily pity, but it's like, oh,
And again, like you just said, kind of too, of like, again, that's why I feel like this is our ministry, is because I come with the empathy and love, and you come with the tough love of like, okay, we talked about it. Now, what are we going to do?
yeah, because you
And it's
sit
like,
in,
I'll meet you where you are. I'll pray with you. I'll get on the floor with you and cry with you. But then what?
yeah, but I'm not going to sit in the shit with you for a very long time. I'll sit with you,
Yeah.
I
But
think
then we
that,
have to move. Then we have to put our
yeah.
mouth and faith in the same boat
And
and
I
step
and I think
forward.
that is one of the gifts that I have been given,
Mhm.
is knowing that time of, okay, this is
It's
enough.
it's time to move.
It's time to move. And if you're not going to move, that's okay, but I'm not going to sit here with you anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not going to pass judgment on you or anything like that. But at this point, I feel like God is taking me from you because
You need solitude to
you
grow.
need, yeah, you need Jesus. I can't help you anymore.
Yeah.
It's between you and God now.
Yeah. And at some point it comes to that.
Yeah.
You cannot rely on everybody around you, because
Yeah.
then how are you? Then you're not relying on God.
So let me ask you,
Okay.
why do you think that this topic matters? Like, what's the point? Like, so we're sitting here talking about this, and in fact, like some people that I've said, yeah, we're doing a generational, trauma episode, and it's in pop culture and all this kind of stuff, and they're like, ugh, like get over and da da da. But I believe that it is an important topic. But why do you feel like it's an important topic?
I think for me specifically, it's understanding where I came from to be able to move forward on how I can be used. Because everybody gives, I mean, think about the people that have experienced trauma or have experienced horrible things happen to them, and that's their ministry now, and they're guiding people to Jesus, and or not even in a religious aspect, but they have opened homes for people, and they don't even understand that that's their calling. They're just, that's my story, and I felt this way one time, and I will do anything to never let someone else feel the same way. So I'm going to show up for them. And I think it's not so much trauma dumping and just swapping stories.
What are you going to do about it?
Well, it's being realistic with who has that made you today?
Yeah.
Where is your starting point? Am I a kind person? Do I cast judgment on people? Am I angry? Am I sad? Am I sorrowful? Like, where am I right now in this moment? And I think the only way to figure that out is to understand where you came from. And then, okay, this is where I am. God, these are the opportunities I have, weaknesses I have, inabilities I have. How can you use me? How can I show up for you? Or whatever it is in that way. But like, in order to be honest with yourself about who you are, I think you have to like dig deep and be like, these things happened to me and it was really terrible, but it's not who I am. That doesn't define who I am. And because God let me go through that, or whatever the circumstance was that he put me through that was hard and uncomfortable, I have now learned empathy. I have now matured from that experience. I now have compassion, or whatever it is. How can you use that going forward? So for me, that's that of like, I may not have the same story of you, but I know what pain feels like.
Yeah.
I know what hurt feels like. I know what abandonment feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And God made sure that I'm in your life to make sure you don't feel those things
Right.
as intense. You know what I mean? And so for me, it's just much much more of like not so much of a like stuck in, like obviously there are things you have to process in times of solitude where you kind of have to just be by yourself and like
Right.
cry it out and scream it out and do whatever. And I mean, even going through your divorce, there was a time where I was like, I don't know how to show up for you. I need to step back.
Yeah. Well,
And
and that was your moment of sitting in the shit with me until you couldn't sit in the shit anymore.
yeah. And so, I mean, like, but that doesn't mean I'm like not praying for you or
Right.
understanding or having guilt
Right.
from that decision.
Well, you shouldn't have guilt,
But in that, I think for me, like the switch is just so much, it's not so much of being stuck of like, oh, I'm the victim. This happened to me. It was so horrible. And I just don't know how to move past it. It's just like, God, how are you going to use that?
and see, I have a different take on why I feel that this is important.
I hope you do.
I do.
It would be boring if you didn't.
The reason I feel like this is important is because all the shit that I went through and coming into this life and thinking, this is it. It's one thing after another. And I'm just taking hits and I'm taking hits and I'm taking hits. And I take all these hits and all these hits keep coming to me because I'm not paying attention to my generational trauma. I'm not meant to live a life where I'm taking hit after hit after hit. I'm not meant to live that. But I've got to work through the things that cause me to go into those patterns and go into those cycles that make me live that life where I'm taking all these hits and my life is not good. I'm not meant to have a bad life. I'm meant to have a good life. And and also God has put it in me, my purpose is to help other people. So I genuinely love helping other people. I genuinely love that light bulb moment for other people, that comfort that they give themselves because of something that I said or, something. And so I genuinely love doing that. But to get there and to have that type of life, I have to go through all these things and heal these different phases of who I've been up until this point in my life to really enjoy my life, because that's what I enjoy. So it's actually helping me to enjoy life, where ignoring this subject, I wouldn't.
Yeah. So I don't want to dumb this down at all because that was beautifully said, but you're kind of using it as a roadmap of like what not to do going forward, or
it's more of working through the phases of it. Why did it happen? What did I get from that? Like, why did I have to go through that? Because I love the
like
why.
finding the lesson and
Finding the lesson.
Like, what did I need? What character traits did I need from that experience?
What kind of like if you think of a Nintendo game, I got to the end of that level. So what did I like? What is the gift? What is the treasure? What is the prize that I got from that? That's going to help me on the next level.
It's funny because we saw a quote this week, and it talks about that because you're talking about taking hit after hit after hit after hit, and just that mentality of when it stops. And sometimes that's a seasonal period in your life where you just take hits, and then other times it's not. And then when you're in those times, you and I are really bad at waiting for the other shoe to drop when we're in the not taking the hit periods, because we're like conditioned to take the hits. And so changing that mentality of like, what's next? If the level can go up, so can your capacity. Yeah. And like you said, like, oh, let me just like add my little diamond or whatever tool to my tool belt and let's go to the next level. And it's just, instead of just, for me, I'm running from pain. I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to sit and hurt. And because I don't want that, I'm hurting and in pain constantly.
And see, I am comfortable in pain.
And that's where my mentality has shifted of like, is it really that scary? It's just a feeling. It's just a feeling. It's uncomfortable. And yes, it hurts. And that's okay because it's temporary. But the longer I'm running from it, now I'm dealing with months of pain versus just dealing with it in that moment.
Yeah. Like, well, and another person that I have in my life, it was like when they lose their temper, they can't turn it off. That's a person that has so much hurt and anger in their belly.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that person. You know, I could also be that person. And
Yeah.
I probably was for a while, but I don't want to be that person because then I'm going through life and I'm not enjoying anything because it's always going to have this underlining
Of hurting other people.
of hurting other people, hurting yourself, like just hurting, period. And it's like, that's exhausting. And it's not anything that I'm interested in doing or being, you know, working it out, going through the different phases, healing, forgiving yourself. Stop thinking about forgiving all. Like, that's the other thing is that it's like, well, you need to forgive this person. No, you need to forgive the person you were at that time.
Yeah.
Because
be humble and realistic.
Yeah. Know that they played their role in your life for a purpose to help you.
Yeah.
I don't relate to that type of mindset where it's blaming other people, and they played their role. So what role are you going to play now that you've endured that? What lessons are you going to take? What prize are you taking away to plug in and make yourself better on the next level?
Somebody said something to me last week, because again, last week was a anxious week for me, and it kind of struck with me, and it says, let God know how you feel so he can lead your feelings back to your faith. And for some reason for me, like, and I do this with you as well, where for me, even when I need to reach out to people, I, for some reason, I'm like, no, I don't want her to know that I'm feeling this. And I do that with God too.
Well, that's shame. That's your own shame.
And that's like, where did this even come from?
It's because you have a lot of shame.
I do. And regarding to religion as well. Not just like societal shame, but like I have a lot of religious shame as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think like, so for me, I don't have a lot of anger. I have a lot of hurt in my belly. Well, I don't so much anymore. I mean, that's what I'm weeding like through. But that was what was in my belly. It was hurt. I feel like yours is shame. You have a lot of shame because then worrying about what other people think about you, people pleasing, all that kind of stuff, that's all stemmed from shame. For me, it's hurt. And so in my past, I hurt other people because hurt people, you know, kind of thing. And so mine wasn't so much anger. It was just hurt. And that came out like a shotgun blast. I mean, it would go everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying it's completely gone, but I'm also loving that side of me because that side of me is going to protect me at all costs. I just have to get her to take it from a 10 to a 2.
Just slide it back a little bit.
Yeah. So let's see. We've talked about journaling, and I mean, I get it. Reparenting yourself while parenting your children. I feel like that's where if I have shame, that's where that comes from, is just worrying about my children and the effect where it's like, I'm going to have to help them pay for therapy. Like, I don't think that I'll feel good with them having to pay for their own therapy.
Yeah. I don't know, because I don't feel, obviously your kids have had to go through other things just with, you know, the divorce and things like that, where mine necessarily haven't in that sense, but I feel like I don't know how to explain it. I feel like my trauma has held me back from being their mother fully, and I don't know how to explain that.
No, I get that. It's almost like you're protecting them from protecting them from the ugly side of you. Yeah.
And I feel like that has kind of changed. And like, I don't know how to explain it, because I don't want to be the mom that is just like, you know, every time I'm sad, I'm sobbing my eyes out in front of my kids, because I don't want that to be on their kids. Like, I don't want them to think that while I was growing up, I was not happy. You know, because there are so many moments in my life that have just been above and beyond happy.
But do you think that they're going to have those moments?
And that's my point of like, how do I show up softly and emotionally and vulnerably in a way that they don't take that on as responsibility, that they need to help me? Does that make sense? Am I explaining that?
Yeah. But
because
I mean, even told them you don't have to fix this?
100%. But I mean, this week I have been crying more than normal, and I went upstairs and I was like, good morning, and was talking to my oldest, and she's like, what's wrong? Are you okay? And that like squeezed something in my heart of like, oh, I'm making her anxious, you know? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you, because you're very open with your children, obviously age appropriate, but you're very open with how you feel and how you grow. And do you find that, I don't know, because I mean, it's a catch-22, because I also want them to have empathy, and I also want them to have compassion, and how do they have that without seeing it in firsthand experience?
So what I do with mine, I mean, because my kids have seen me ugly crying, like, and all that kind of stuff. And and my kids will reach out to me, especially my oldest. She's my bleeding heart one. And
Yeah.
not saying that my youngest isn't the same, because she is very protective of me.
Mhm.
But I will look at them in between my tears and, crying and, all this and going on. And I look at them and say, hey, I'm sad right now. I just have to get this out, because it's as soon as I get it out,
Mhm.
it's going to be good. And I'm not always going to be this way.
Yeah.
How I feel right now is just temporary. And this is how I need to get it out.
Mm.
And that I just explain it to them in that way of, I'm not always going to feel this way.
Mhm.
I just do right now. And it's okay to feel this way.
Yeah. And I have done that, and I have tried to do that, and just being like, you know what? Sometimes you just have a bad time. Sometimes it's just a bad day, and sometimes things are just hard. That doesn't mean it's always going to be like that, or it's going to be like that tomorrow even.
Yeah.
But right now it just hurts.
And this is what, and I do explain to them, this is what's helping me get to the other side.
And I don't know what we were doing, but we were doing something, and my oldest got a little teary-eyed, but not really. And she kind of like shoved it back down. And I was like, hey, like, what was that? What happened? And she's like, nothing. I just kind of got emotional. I was like, well, June, we need to go for a drive. Do you need to have like a good cry? Like, sometimes we just need to have a good cry, and we don't even know why. And it turned out, it's about that time of the month, and it was just something, that was just hormonally happening to her. But at the same time, like, that was one thing I didn't allow myself. I needed to be stronger. It wasn't even anything made me do. It was an imposed belief that I put on myself of like, I can't show weakness. I can't be sad. I need to shove it down. I need to do these things because I need to be better or stronger, or I associated not having feelings with strength.
Right.
And so teaching them that vulnerability is also strength.
Yeah.
And almost even stronger than being strong.
Yeah.
Because being strong and shoving it down is the easy part. But, allowing yourself to be vulnerable in front of someone that you don't know, someone that you're not on that same page with, like, that's difficult. To quote you, feels like cramps.
It does. Feels like cramps, man. So going back to like family though, how is that going for you? I mean, I kind of took the extreme but necessary to cut off. I couldn't. And I think that, and you say this to me, or you ask me kind of often here recently, where it's like, do you feel that you can't heal in the environment that broke you or that, and I couldn't. I think that is specific to me though. I don't feel like that is all encompassing, like for everyone. Well, and it is that way. But so how is that going for you?
I think it's different too. Like, for instance, in your situation where, you're in a new relationship and trying to not put traumas from previous relationships onto the person that you're with. That's a different situation too. Of like, that person didn't give you the trauma, but they might be triggering it. They might be hitting on some nerves. So healing in that environment is also very different from the environment that hurts you.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm not necessarily in the environment at all that hurt me. The environment that's hurting me is made up in my mind right now.
Yeah.
And so that environment's going with me everywhere.
Yeah.
But as far as like my spouse, my family, my children, I feel like I've just been very, very lucky to be surrounded with people who support me without asking questions of like, I don't understand it. I don't know what you need, but I'll follow you around till you figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think somebody that's going through this as well, or starting or in the middle or the end, or whatever, have found that they've got to set boundaries. And they obviously, I set a hard boundary for me. What does that look like for you though, where you're not, I don't see you having to take the extreme boundary setting that I had to. So what does that look like for someone that does need to set boundaries, but not as hard as I do?
Honestly, like, it's not even a conversation. And that sounds so backwards, but I think it's changing me. If I show up differently, other people will show up differently.
Ooh, I like that.
And if they don't, then that's not on me anymore.
Right.
So it's not about boundaries for me anymore. It's not about me setting expectations. It's not about me saying that's not how you're going to speak to me. That's not how you're going to do anything. I'm showing up different now. I'm going to be different now. And
so it's up to you. It's not up to them.
Well, it's up to the Lord to keep my mouth shut is what it's up to. It's up to the Lord to humble me immediately in those situations. But I think for me, and even like, I mean, and when James and I first started dating and we're headed to marriage, we did some marriage counseling, and it was it was brought to my attention that this, I don't even know who, it was an older couple in the church, and they were having problems, and he didn't want to come to church. He didn't want to do anything. He wanted to go out and drink and party, and she was super religious and, all these things. And she just kept praying, and God just put it on her heart for her to show up, for her to love him, for her to change.
Right.
And that's, that does one of two things. My spirit now offends you and you will leave on your own, or my spirit will force you to grow.
Yeah.
And that's all I've got.
I mean,
that's and so from your sense of boundaries of like, this is what I will not accept, I have the same mentality. I have the same thought process of, no, that's not, but it's on myself. If I'm not allowing myself to show up in that way anymore, I'm not allowing myself to take offense. I'm not and if I do, like, Lord, humble me. And so and it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be messy. I'm going to make mistakes, but then just,
what do you do with the shame that comes with that?
And let it go. That's not mine. That's Satan. That's Satan putting that in my thought.
But what do you do with the shame that comes up with that?
Can you give me an
Well, because I'm sure that, like, with that, with being a people pleaser anyways, putting that boundary down either with yourself or with someone else, I mean, I would think that shame comes up with that as well.
So I told you about an instance yesterday where I tried to show up differently and I got my feelings hurt immediately.
Right.
And for me, that wasn't shame.
Okay.
That was hurt.
Yeah.
Which was new for me. I hadn't felt the hurt, and I got my feelings hurt over nothing and went and cried in my office.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say nothing,
but it was something that I was excited about something and wanted to talk to somebody about it, and they were angry and shut me down so fast and so harsh, and then took it a step further and then said I wasn't showing up for them or doing something for them. And I literally had so many things to say.
And see,
out of hurt, out of anger, of like, who are you talking to?
See, that was my secondary. Like, when you were telling me that story, my first was I felt sympathy for that person.
And that was my last. Like, that's where I'm retraining my thoughts. Of my last thought was, oh, he's so angry.
But then my second thought was where you were at immediately, where I was like, well, fuck that guy. Like,
yeah. Legit. And it was a situation of like, someone wasn't happy. They were having to be doing something, and I was trying to make it better, and they didn't want it to be better. They wanted to be angry.
My mind then goes to, God, what path are they on? Like, what does that look like? Give me their birth information.
And then for me, it was very similar of like, oh, Lord, he needs you. Like, let me say a prayer right now. Also, Lord, shut my mouth, because all I'm feeling right now is anger, and I need vengeance. I need revenge. I need to make him hurt the way he just made me hurt for no reason when I was showing up genuinely.
Right.
When I was showing up vulnerable.
Right.
And he shut me down so hard. And this was not my husband, so please don't come for my husband. This was somebody at work. But
he would be unalived at this point. I mean, come on now.
But changing how I show up and sitting there, and instead of responding to him with anger, I literally was like, I am so sorry. I did not mean to offend you in that way. And it shocked him. And then when he came at me again and I responded and I dropped everything, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. How can I help you? Shocked him. Before he left, he was speaking to me differently.
Yeah.
But it hurt.
Yeah.
And it was so shocking to me how quickly it hurt.
But why did that hurt?
Because, and it came back to my ego of how dare you speak to me that way?
Yeah.
How dare you talk to me that way? One, I was just superior and I had to lay it down.
Yeah.
But it's like that trauma, that self-limiting beliefs of my own self of like, I don't know who you think you're talking to right now.
Right.
Have you seen me?
Yeah.
Like getting that out of my head.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like, so I have somewhat of a similar-ish experience. I have someone in my life that constantly questions what I say.
As far as like if it's true?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like, and will accuse me of not telling the truth, of like I'm smoke screening them.
Yeah,
like
sure.
I'm, not being genuine with what I'm saying. And that drives me insane. Like that's a lesson for me that I didn't know that I needed, you know? And
I love that it always comes back to patience for you. The Lord is trying.
Jeez. I mean, you don't have to push so hard. Fuck. But because again, like what I'm saying anyways in the first place is genuine.
It's the truth.
Yeah. And how I feel about things, and all that kind of stuff. And so, but how I've started to look at it is that's not me. That has nothing to do with me.
Because that could link back to ego as well. Like, how dare you call me a liar?
Exactly. Because it's like, I know that I'm not.
Yeah.
So why am I gonna take that and like be offended by that? That's their thing. That's
That
not me.
you
That's
hit
not on
something on the
me.
head too of like this journey is understanding I cannot change other people's thoughts on mine.
No.
If they don't like me, if they perceive me in a certain way. And when we
That's from
started
their own
and when we
experience.
started this podcast, that was a genuine concern of yours. If we got negative comments, how it would affect me.
Oh yeah, I was terrified. Well,
Yeah.
and I said I'm still like, for now, I'm kind of doing all of the social media stuff, and I'm like hunting. Like as soon as like I've been on social media so much more being on this podcast because I'm hunting to see. I want to see it 1st. I want to, and we didn't have it wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad comment, but it was a comment of kind of like, hey, you didn't really give more, or like
they
the
wanted
expectation. They wanted more from you
Yeah.
in a certain episode and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, I think that this is calm enough because at the same time, like my thing is
criticism, corrective in a
yeah,
way.
but I thought
it's
that it was
helpful.
soft enough that I
Yeah,
could
yeah, yeah.
send to you and just be like, here,
Yeah.
to try to help desensitize a little bit.
Yeah.
And how did that go, by the way?
But I mean, like that's ego too.
But how did
like,
that go? I didn't ask.
I think I responded with I said what I said.
Yeah, you did. But at the same time, that's behind closed doors. Like I get,
I actually don't even, I remember you sending it to me, but I don't remember it being a thought that I resonated with. And I think
do you not see that as growth?
But I think that is, I don't consider it as growth because I'm in such a state of such a season of exhaustion where it was I didn't have it in me to care about it, and I'm sorry you felt that way. I said what I said.
But is that a bad thing?
No, and that's what I'm saying of like I'm being forced to do things like you are, and
so we're just hoping that the exhaustion part kind of fades away at some point.
and it's hitting.
Yeah.
I'm like, but again, like I've been filling my things with busyness.
Yeah.
So of course I'm tired.
Yeah.
I won't sit down. Of course I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And now it's sitting down, finding something that truly sustains me.
Mm-hmm.
And God's like, let me show you what this looks like.
Yeah.
And now we're in that period of like, okay, Lord. And I'm feeling it on my heart. Like we've talked about this. Like also funny fun fact about school. He was like, yeah, you weren't supposed to do that. But it's been amusing watching you be so stubborn to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
When you've literally become ill, lost your memory, and are still trying to graduate.
Yeah. I will say that's one thing me and God have in common. And I haven't said anything because it was just more. But
even still, he's like, this is why it's you. This fight that you have for you over me, this is why I need you.
Yeah.
Because I need you to fight for me now.
Yeah. You just have to turn it
and let
in a
me
different
show
direction.
You what sustenance, but let me show you what energy, let me show you what revival and renewal feels like.
Yeah.
Fighting for me.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad you're there. I haven't said anything because it's just been okay.
Yeah. But yeah, this week has been nothing but submission, y'all.
Not something that we do very well.
And to the point of like not sleeping, incessantly praying, submission. And that's where we are, and that's where we're moving forward. And that's where God's like, I need perseverance, I need maturity, I need compassion in a different way.
Yeah.
Let me show you what that looks like, because I'm going to give it to you first.
And you're going to feel it through peace.
Yeah. And I mean, as exhausted as like the residual anxious, like my chest hurts just talking about it, my hands still shake, there's just this peace in my bones that is like pushing me forward of like, you know what, this is temporary. And that's Satan's trying to use my old habits, my old train of thoughts to get me back, and that's not what I'm doing anymore.
Yeah.
I refuse.
So
that is my one boundary.
Yeah, the world's a good
and that
boundary.
one's a hard one, and
it's
the rest with people is I'm going to show up different.
Yeah, and they're going to take it or leave it,
and that's God working through my spirit.
However, that's God protecting you, and helping you protect yourself.
Well, and you think about it too, like I've been in church my whole life. I've never felt the relationship that I have with God today.
That's great.
Never. And so understanding if people aren't ready, they're not ready with me. They're not ready with, and taking that and stepping back and being like, God's going to use them when he's ready, when they're ready, but not everyone is going to give in to him.
Mm-hmm.
And how sad and depressing that is hurts me, but that's a pain he's already feeling as well. So I have to keep moving, and I have to find the one or whoever he needs me to be. I mean, and right now he wants me right here with you and wants me doing this and us showing up in that way.
Yeah, I think that we're pretty badass most days. Well, so words of encouragement. You are not your past. Well, you are. I think that you are your past, but
stop running from it.
Stop running from it. Face it. sit in it for a little bit. Don't sit in it forever. Sit in it. Take what you want. Leave the rest.
And then this is for me. This is personally for me. So if you're feeling like this is what I'm doing going forward. And this is one of the quotes I told you last night. It says, "Do I genuinely bring my friends and family to Jesus? Or do we just swap trauma back and forth?" So when you're coming to me with a problem, am I like, "Oh my gosh, I can relate to that?" Or am I stopping and be like, "God, let me pray for her. Let me put your peace over her. Let me,
Yeah.
get on my knees for you and fight for you."
Yeah.
In that way versus
I'm
like,
just wanting to read your birth chart so I can figure out where you are right now.
yeah, she would like that.
Yeah, I love doing that. I mean, I've got tools to help you.
Yeah.
The tools that work for me. And I think that it is interesting with the whole religion thing. And I mean, at some point, I think that we are going to have an episode about our beliefs, spiritual versus, well, not versus, but you know what I mean,
Yeah.
like spiritual versus religion. Feels the way that I do, where I've been shunned by religion, as a whole, but still finding my own type of.
Because I think you still feel that pull towards God.
I still, yeah, and
Yeah.
I still, and I've never, and it's kind of like what you said. When I've discovered astrology, and really started going deep and doing the inner work of myself, and like going really deep into my chart and my purpose and all these things, which is what was God led. I've never felt closer to God in my life than I do now, and mine is through astrology, spirituality, all the things. So it doesn't matter what it looks like.
Yeah, it matters how you show up, how you live your life.
Yeah, and there's so many tools out there.
And I think it's so interesting that, you just brought up too, like you were shunned by religion, and now I'm going down this religious journey like we talked about. And it's a fear that like Satan's putting in the back of the head of she's gonna leave you, she's gonna outgrow you, this is gonna happen again.
Yeah.
And it's much more of like, maybe I'm just here to show you what God actually is supposed to be, what religion was supposed to be for you.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, maybe, but I also look at it as an acceptance thing, because being shunned as much as I was, and then being around religious people, I kind of got the same attitude that they had towards me.
Yeah.
Where it was just like, yeah, like what you stand for, I don't stand for anyway. So I don't really have time for you anyways. Like, I don't really like you, like the God that I know is not the same. We are not the same, kind of thing. And so I think that more than anything, you and I are just an example of how God works in different ways. There's not a right or wrong at all. There is just different, because we're all different people. We're all on different paths. We all have different purposes, and how we get there is going to be different too. There's a person that I know that, funny enough, has my same rising sign. And typically somebody who has your same rising sign, there are a lot of parallels of your life, and where it's kind of freaky, to be honest.
Really?
Where it's just, we were raised in the same type of way. We had the same life experiences. We had, not they were very different at the same time, but fundamentally they were the same. It looks different, but it's, but how we went about things is completely different. And it's just showing that you can be given, but we're all just different. And so what works for them is not necessarily what's going to work for me, but then sometimes what does work for me is going to work for you, but you didn't know until I came into your life, or vice versa, kind of thing. So, and for me, I think that it's another lesson of kind of what I feel that the people that shunned me should have learned. I'm having to learn, hey, you have to accept her, that works for her, that's the thing for her. You have to accept her as much as she accepts you for what. It doesn't mean that she's going to not be here anymore. But you have to love her and accept her for her path and what works for her. And not to say that I even have a thought of being like, fuck her. Like, I don't have that at all.
I didn't think
it's more, but it is more of a fear. But that's a me battle. That's not something that you need to overcompensate
but
for.
I think like right now, where like, because I don't know if you guys have if we've talked about this at all, but you and I have for sure, of where like June was kind of always my deadline, because that's when I graduate. That's when I, that's when I have some free
when
time.
Jupiter goes into our sun sign, man. I am super stoked about it.
That's when my husband is leaving me in the military for 5 months. And, there's a lot of things happening in June. So June has kind of been this unrealized deadline for me. And so I feel like he's pushing us both in these areas of growth and not only trusting him, but trusting each other.
Yeah.
Because if this is the ministry he wants us on, Satan's going to push us apart hard.
For sure.
And he's going to pick apart the things that we already fear about each other.
But I think people out there are probably seen in our in between the episodes, we're kind of like, bring it on, bitch. Let's go.
And I think you have always been that way. And I've been standing behind you like, ah, you know what she said? You know what I mean?
Yes.
But like, no, please don't do that. She was kidding.
We got this. We got this.
But I'm slowly but surely catching up to that. Like, you've got nothing on us.
Yeah. Like it's you and me against the world.
You've got nothing on us.
It's you and me against the world. And I think that's also where I'm at, where I am good with a best friend and then a partnership if I can have one. And that's something that I'm working through right now in relationships, and that's with my generational trauma.
Because you're not going to need them, because we're going to just have the biggest village. You know what I mean? We're going to be.
But I think that just you and me is the biggest village. Really.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Now, to say that I think that the rest of our village, it's going to change. It's going to ebb and flow and all this, but
I increase.
Yeah.
All of the things.
But I feel that at the core thing for us is that we're goods. Like, we're solid, and we're going to work through whatever it looks like, and
and
things
be open.
Yeah. Why not?
So, and I would take that to what we said about trauma in your partnerships of, I'm changing something right now that I'm not physically able to share all of my thoughts about because I don't know them.
Yeah.
And so what that looks like for you, what that looks like for my husband can be kind of like, what's she up to this week?
I can imagine that it, like, being a people pleaser and thinking, okay, I feel this way and this is how I'm going to act. This is how I'm going to show up now. Being a people pleaser, that has to be terrifying for the people that you are actually close with. But I think at the same time, I hope that at some point that you can look back at me and James and be like, but they're going to love me anyway.
Well, and I think too, for me, it's much more of I sound crazy. And when I think of you and James, both of you are like, we already think you're crazy. Like, what's different than yesterday?
What's new? I mean,
you just found a new crazy to obsess about.
Yeah, we just found a 24th personality. It's cool.
And so that has been very comforting for me of like, you have changed, but from the mentality of you were already a little out there with your beliefs, that hasn't remained the same. And I think with my other relationships right now, I think because I am showing up genuine, like they may not understand it, or they may not feel it, or they may be like, oh, she's like crying a lot this week. This is specific to the other men in my life that I work with who have walked into my office and had to listen to me sob for 5 seconds. Like, that is they're watching that as well. He's using me in those moments as well. But not having myself physically put together, physically showing up in a picture perfect way, I thought it would be harder. It's literally been the most seamless thing for me.
Because you're choosing peace.
Because I submitted.
You're choosing peace.
Yeah. Like,
there's peace and submission.
I wanted
healthy.
I've been struggling
submission.
I've been struggling with swearing. Hasn't even, like, the second I submitted, it hasn't been a fight. And it's just so interesting to me of like, you've really been trying out here to do it yourself.
Yeah.
It's been so hard.
Yeah.
But I thought it would be harder, with the exception of like me showing up in a vulnerable way and it not being reciprocated. Yesterday was the first time that happened.
And you're going to have that.
And that is what I have to get comfortable with.
And you will.
And I will.
And you just have to.
But as
patience, ma'am. Patience.
But as far as like the people pleasing aspect, the need to look a certain way, sound a certain way, be perceived a certain way, all I hope you see is that, and we talked about this, is that I understand there's hypocrisy in Christianity. I understand there's hypocrisy in religion. There's hypocrisy in everything. But when you look at me, I want you to be like, I believe her God's real. Yeah. I believe what she is praying about. I believe what she is living because I see her life. Yeah. And that for me, when I was like, that's all I want, the people pleasing. And that does not mean that Satan's not going to bring that back. That Satan's not going to put my ego back in my ear.
Well, you got to keep your skills sharp.
But I'm going to submit immediately. and just maintaining that habit now of like, this is the way that I
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And I think that for me and you, me going through this first has helped. And I think that
yeah, we couldn't have both done it at the same time.
no. But I think too with me, because I'm a runner anyway, had you gone through it first, I would have been gone because it would have triggered me in all type of places and all, things. And so that's the other thing where it's for me, it looks like alignment. It feels like alignment to me.
That's the kind of like, I feel it in my bones, like that resilience now, like it's in my soul.
Yeah. That's called alignment. Yeah. It's nice. I like it. Doesn't mean like, when you're healing generational trauma, like I'm here to tell you, like that does not mean that you're not going to have.
I just told you my hands are still shaking. My chest still hurts, but I feel it in my bones.
But there is something that's replaced in your core that when you replace peace with all the hurt or anger or shame, like whatever it is that's in your belly, everything else, you can handle it. You can do it. It's all right. Hell, and I know people say this all the time, but if I can do it, you can fucking do it. Like I'm telling you, if I can do it, you can do it, because I come from nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing. Now I'm everything. And I'm trying to live the best life that I can. Not going to be perfect at it.
Forgive yourself.
Absolutely. Get rid of that shame.
And that's one that you had to get over too, was you didn't have all the information. And when you did, you moved.
Yeah. That's why I like the why. I can, if you explain to me all the information, I can understand why. I can move.
And for me, and again, like I truly believe this is the difference of having support and not having support growing up. I don't need it. I'll move. You tell me to go talk to somebody in line, I'm going to be like, this sounds crazy. Here I am.
Yeah. And am I going to have a podcast? And here I am.
That one was definitely put on me. I was like, wait, what?
Oh, yeah.
We're doing what?
Yeah, we are. We're doing it. It's cool.
So here we are.
I will say, share your experiences with us. Reach out to us privately.
If you need something, if you want to talk.
Or if you need resources, or you just need to just talk to somebody. Like,
and I love that we do believe so differently, because people that feel the same way about religion may not come to me, but they may come to you.
Yeah, we have something for everybody.
We got you.
We've literally got it all covered. Like we, combined, and you might have a little something, I might have a little something, it's just, and that's kind of why we're doing this anyways, is because we want to be able to fully encompass we want to
be purposeful
in the whole arena. I mean, because no man left out, no man left behind.
That's right.
So please know that this is not an easy journey for sure, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
And you got support. You got people that are willing to be there and listen and guide and all that kind of stuff. And God is always constantly watching after you and sending you help, sending you boats.
God is good.
Yeah.
You had an experience this week.
What?
With that I couldn't be with you. We were literally both on the phone sobbing, and God sent someone to you.
Oh God, yeah.
When you had to put your puppy down.
I did. I had to put my dog down, and just in my fashion, I'm sitting here losing it. My dog is 17 years old, and it's just time. And
we are like sobbing on the phone. I'm like, just let me come meet you, and you're like, no, I have to do this alone.
Yeah, I needed to just get it done, and I get there, and I'm having to wait in the waiting room an hour after the scheduled time.
That's so hard.
And I'm losing it, and my nose started bleeding, of course, because it's springtime, of course.
It's dry.
Yeah, and this lady was there to pick up her dog, and like that's the thing, and she was sitting on a bench close to mine, and she just scooted over, and she was like, I'm so sorry, but you're breaking my heart. She was like, why are you alone? Like, what is going on? And I was like, I just need to put my dog down. And she was like, I can't believe you. And she sat there with me the entire time until we had to go back. And I looked at her and I said, thank you so much for being so kind to me when I needed it. I did need it. And you know, and I had, you know, my young friend had volunteered to be there, but it was just, and I can't explain it. It was just one of those things where it was like, no, you got to do this. Like, you just got to do this. It was the first time since the divorce that I've had to do something like that on that level hard. And I had to do it on my own, and God showed up for me. And that was that.
And the best part is, like, you weren't even expecting it. You were
No.
fully prepared to be like, I have to walk this alone. You asked me to walk this alone. I'm walking it alone.
And I'll be honest, like, there was some hardness that came over, like, in my chest, where I was just like, yeah, I'm doing this on my own, and fuck everybody else. Like, there, and then that lady just
Humbled
being
you.
that way, humbled me and softened that place in my heart that I was in. And I thought, all right. And so,
I see you.
yeah. And so again, like, that's why I say, you know, if you feel in your bones and your heart and your soul that you need to reach out to somebody, like, we are those people. Like, if you have stumbled across us, this is it. This
Welcome
is
home.
your, welcome home, man. You know, it's imperfect. It's messy. It
loud.
hurts, but it's so,
I cry a lot now.
It's, and I don't.
We're just so backwards.
So, but just know that you're not alone, and we're definitely here. So please reach out if you need it. And if not, that's okay. And just at the end of the day, more than anything, I think that we just don't want you to feel alone. You're not at all. God's watching for you. So, all right, until next time.
Bye.
Bye.